If you've ever wondered what to do with your Valentine's Day roses or cut flowers that you buy from the supermarket, then this is the video for you. Welcome back to today's video. Now this one is designated to all of you who are feeling the love for Valentine's Day and are expecting to receive some red roses, or are watching this video after St. Valentine's Day and would like some hints and tips on how to care for your fresh flowers. Now roses of any description are notoriously difficult to look after, so I'm going to provide you with lots of hints and tips on how to care for not just your roses, but any cut flowers that you might be buying from your local florist shop or from your supermarket, or you might be picking from your garden. Now we're going to start with looking at a very traditional bouquet that you might have delivered on Valentine's Day or for your birthday or for your anniversary. And I'm going to explain to you what exactly you need to do when your flowers arrive. Now there's a good chance that they've been delivered to you in this manner with a decorative box on the bottom, some packaging in the form of cellophane or some tissue, and you might be concerned that you really don't know how to process them once they've been delivered. If you're lucky enough to have flowers delivered from a professional florist, then the florists themselves will have done a lot of the work for you. So they will have cared for the flowers when they arrived from the wholesalers. They would have put them in water, given them the correct flower food, and they would have stored them at the correct temperature. Then they would have arranged them beautifully for you, whether they're in this manner or whether they're in a more simplified version. The florist hopefully will have provided you with some flower food, and that's really important to use to help the longevity of your flowers and to get them to last as long as we possibly can. Now one of the benefits of having flowers delivered from a florist shop is that they're likely to have been delivered with a bubble of water on the bottom. And if I just remove the packaging that we've got on this bouquet here, we'll be able to see exactly how that works. Now the decorative box here helps for transportation, keeps the design stable, and of course it adds to the extra presentation. That box, that decorative box, might come in a different style and a different format, or you might not have the box at all. But if you've had flowers from a florist supplies, then there's a good chance that they will be arranged in this water bubble. So if we just remove the box, you can see that that's quite easy to do. You just need to remove these little side sections of the box, open it up, and inside you will see what we tend to call a water bubble in the floristry trade. If you've had flowers delivered to your place of work, then don't worry, because there will be an adequate water supply in the bottom of the arrangement to keep those flowers fresh for you while you finish your day's work. You can leave the flowers in this little bubble of water for maybe 3 or 4 days, but after that I would suggest following the information that I'm going to give you in the next part of the video. So you've got your flowers, you either decided that you're going to leave them in the water bubble for a few days, or you're going to take that cellophane base from your flowers. What you'll need to do is just simply remove the cardboard box. There's a good chance that you can recycle that, or you could use it at a later date. And then you'll be left with the outer packaging and the water bubble here on the bottom. Now mine isn't currently filled with water because I'm going to remove it in a minute, and we obviously don't want the water spilling out everywhere. But this bottom section here is going to contain water. The best way of removing the cellophane off the bottom is to simply stand it in the sink and use a scissors to remove the string or the sellotape or the ribbon that's tied around the base of your bouquet. Now if your bouquet has been constructed correctly, it will stand up quite sufficiently on its own, and if you're really enjoying that packaging, then you can leave your bouquet like this for 3 to 4 days. So what I'm going to do is just snip off that string, remembering that if you're doing this at home, make sure that you're over the sink. Once the cellophane has been removed, you have this gorgeous spiraled hand-tied bouquet that your florist has worked really hard to create. And this bunch has 10 red roses. You might have 12, you could have 20, you could have been really treated and have 50, or you could have a beautiful half dozen. But the technique and the method is exactly the same, however many roses you've had and whatever colour roses you've been provided with. I love to have a bouquet with lots of foliage in it. Again, you might not have any foliage in your bouquet, but I really love to have the addition of some extra foliage. Now, if you want to, you can leave that top section of cellophane on, and what I'm going to do in a minute is arrange it into this red vase. But just for me to show you as an example, if you decided to keep the top part of the cellophane on, then you could place your bouquet as so. And the reason that I've got this vase by my hand, if you haven't already spotted it, is because I wanted to explain to you the importance of making sure you're using a clean vase. Now, this vase is one I keep here in the studio just to show new flower arrangers and florists, but you can probably see, or you can hopefully see, this has a really grimy base to the bottom of the vase, and it has a tide line where the previous water source was. And this is a really good example of what you don't want to do. You need to have a vase that's perfectly clean. It needs to be thoroughly washed out with some washing up liquid, small amount of bleach. You can put it through the dishwasher if it's dishwasher safe, but it needs to be meticulously clean so that you don't transfer any bacteria from this vase onto your fresh flowers. So pick your best vase that's nice and clean, put that to one side because we don't want that one, and we'll bring back my lovely red vase. Now, good reputable florist will provide you with some instructions on how to care for your flowers, and they will also provide you with some flower food. And I hear so many people tell me that they never use the flower food, they throw it out. But it's really quite important to use. It contains a sugar solution which is going to feed your flowers and encourage all the flower heads to open up fully. It also encourages the buds to open. There's a bactericide which stops any of that green slimy mould growing on the inside of your container, and it also contains a pH balancer which is going to soften any hard water that you might have in the area that you live. Read the instructions on the back, make sure you've got the correct amount of water. Ideally you need lukewarm water or room temperature water because it contains less air bubbles and is much better for your flowers. And then I'm going to cut that second band of string so that we can remove the cellophane packaging from around the outside. Now, if you're buying supermarket flowers, then you also need to remove that cellophane packaging because it's going to encourage your flowers to sweat, and then condensation will form and your flowers will age far more quickly. Right, okay, so now we can see the bouquet in all its glory, tied to hold all the flowers together. And if you want to, you can just insert that quite comfortably into your vase. This is probably too long for this style of, or the size of vase, but you can see how that formal preparation that the florist has done to create that hand-tied bouquet gives you a really good design to sit comfortably in your vase. So I made this bouquet previously to filming the tutorial, so I know exactly what I've got. I've got 3 of these gorgeous palms. These are going to work really beautifully on the outside of my container. I've got some thin pieces of eucalyptus. I nearly forgot what it was called then. And I've got several pieces of the eucalyptus. I've also got a foliage called Pittosporum, and this is Pittosporum Dower. This is the variegated large leaf Pittosporum. If you're used to arranging flowers, you might be familiar with the smaller leafed Pittosporum. This is a lovely bulky foliage that helps to hold that hand tie together. And all I'm doing is just separating everything off so that I can see exactly what I've got. And then I've got these lovely 10 roses. Now this is a variety called Naomi. It's red Naomi, and often many people are scared off by Naomi because it has a very dark outer petal, and sometimes they think it's dead or it's past its best, but it's just the natural colouring of this red Naomi rose. If you don't like it, it's very easy to remove by just using your finger and your thumb to remove anything that's unsightly, damaged, or those very dark petals if you don't like them. If you love the dark petals on the outside, which I do, I tend to leave them on. If there's anything that's damaged, bruised, or showing any signs of mold, then you need to remove the petals as soon as possible so they don't transfer through the whole flower head. Now, another benefit of having flowers from the florist is that they will already have been prepared for you. And you'll see with these ones, they've had all the lower foliage removed and they've had the thorns removed. And that's really important when you're arranging flowers. Anything that's going to be in the water, anything below the water level inside your vase needs to have all of the foliage and the thorns removed. Regardless of what flower you're using, you need to get rid of it so that it doesn't contaminate the water and make it green and really slimy. Now, the other flower that I've forgotten to mention is we have some gyp. We had 2 or 3 stems of quite long stemmed gypsophila, which is like a florist grade. If you want to add any extra greenery from the garden or some flowers that you might already have at home, you can just incorporate those within the vase as well. Now, I prefer this vase here because it's got a narrower neck on the top, and that's going to hold and support my flowers. The other vase that we looked at that was particularly dirty has a much wider neck. So that means the flowers would splay out further away from the centre, and this would suit a much bigger bouquet of flowers. So my red vase is going to be much better. Now, with this style of arranging, I'm looking for my flowers and my foliage to be about twice the height of my container. We'll just pop that rose in for you to have a rough idea. Now, on its own, it looks a bit strange, but by the time we've incorporated all our greenery and our gyp, hopefully it will look more in keeping with the size of the vase. What I'm going to do first of all is use my bunchier foliages to give me what I tend to refer to as a little bit of a cushion at the base of my vase, and that's going to help elevate the flowers on the top, rather than them all sit in the vase, splayed out towards the outer edge, where they're going to naturally fall against the vase. My support network of foliage in the centre is going to help position the flowers. Now, a good strong pair of scissors or secateurs is ideal for this job, and with the hardwood foliage we're going to cut it at an angle and remove some of the outside bark. That opens up more surface area and it allows the water to enter the stem much quicker. And what I'm going to do is just line my foliage all up together and cut it so it's the same length. And then I know that that centre part of my bouquet is going to be the same height. Now, that nearly hit you. So ideally, a good strong florist scissors or a secateurs is going to work better for this job. If you're training to be a florist, then you might want to use a florist knife to remove the bark from on the outside. If you haven't got a knife, then cut it by splitting the stem on the bottom, and that will help get that water in as quickly as possible. Remember that all the foliage below the water level needs to be removed, and this gorgeous foliage is going to work so well to give me that base layer to hold my flowers into position. Now, you can see here, we don't want any of that debris in the vase. So I'm just going to remove it all by running my hand down the base, and I've placed it into the vase. So we've got a fairly circular shape and it sits quite comfortably in here because the neck of the vase is quite narrow. Now that's going to give me a really solid base to support my roses. Before I put the roses in, I'm going to add in my gyp. And sometimes the gyp can be quite fragile, so you'll notice that I'm holding it with both hands to give it that extra support it might need. And I'm just going to use one piece of my foliage to give me a rough guide of where I need to cut my gyp. And then I know that everything is going to be on the same sort of level, and we're going to create almost like a round posy shape. And then I'm going to feed the gyp into the bouquet, making sure that the stems have gone down deep enough into the base so that it can get to that water supply. Now, if you're at home, you can spend a little bit more time creating a design that's a bit more pleasing, but you get the sort of idea, a lovely round shape. So this design is going to be visible from all directions. And now I'm going to start with my roses, bearing in mind that we cut about an inch or so off the bottom of that greenery. So at this stage, I would decide whether or not you want your roses to be a little bit proud of your greenery, or whether you would want them sitting a little lower. I'm thinking that we need to cut them a bit shorter so they're sitting on top of that gorgeous greenery and that delicate sort of gypsophila. Okay, so you can see there I've got my heads to a fairly similar height. I've decided that I'm not going to remove any of those darker petals because I really do like them and I love the colour combination. Now they've all been cut to a very similar length, and because I have this cushioned network of foliage, I can now feed my roses through so that they're slightly elevated above my greenery and my gyp. That means we'll be able to really clearly see all our roses, and it gives them space between the flowers for the rose heads to open up without getting squashed by any other roses. Lots of florists, teachers, YouTubers as well will remove all of the rose leaves because they feel they're a bit unsightly. But I always think the rose almost looks like it's naked when it doesn't have any leaves. So I do like to leave the top 1 or 2 sets on. I think it adds some interest, it gives some contrast to your arrangement, and it makes that rose look like it's a real flower, not an artificial version. So I've got that lovely structure holding my roses beautifully into place. They're not flopping to the outer edge of my vase, and it gives me a really gorgeous display of these fabulous red roses. So I think that's a lovely display so far. It's fairly even. I've started with 1 or 2 in the middle and I've worked around the outside edge. Now I'm going to use my eucalyptus to give me a bit of contrasting colour and shape and to add a bit of extra texture. I'm going to do the same thing by cutting about 1 inch off the bottom, and these have beautiful arching shapes, so these are going to work quite well towards the outside of the bouquet, and any straighter pieces like this one can be added more towards the middle, and it gives me those varying heights, which is quite important in a floral design. And then the remaining 3 pieces, which have a slight bit of a curve to them, can work around the outside, remembering that any greenery needs to be completely removed. Oh, now for the eagle-eyed ones amongst you might have noticed that I completely missed the vase with that one. So let's go again, because if it can't get to the water on the bottom, then it's not going to survive. And then I'm left with my gorgeous palm leaves. Nice clean cut on the bottom of these as well before we place them into the water. And I'm going to work each one of the palm leaves, I nearly said pine leaf then, I'm going to work each one of the palm leaves in between my 2 pieces of eucalyptus, because it's going to make a really lovely contrast and it's going to help create an all-round design. Now I'm hoping you're going to be lucky enough to have some flowers delivered for Valentine's Day, or maybe even for forthcoming Mother's Day. And hopefully those hints and tips will help you create a really gorgeous display of roses. My final tips would be to either top up the water on a regular basis or to replace it every 2 to 3 days. Store your flowers away from any direct heat source like a fire or a radiator, away from any drafts and out of direct sunlight. I know that we really love to show off our flowers, but placing them in the front window in direct sunlight is not the best way to look after them. So I'm hoping that that's given you a bit of an insight in how to look after fresh red roses. Most of the rules that I've explained to you today apply to all woody or semi-woody types of flowers. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comment box below and I can help answer them. If you're new to the channel, I probably haven't introduced myself. My name is Sharon Dower. You can join me over on Facebook for a private Facebook group called Sharon's Innovations Group. And I would really love you to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you know every time I've uploaded a new tutorial. Stick to the end of the video so that you can see some close-ups of the individual flowers. So thanks for watching and we'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.